Part 27. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 261. This is, the Firebird Talisman. Master. Looking at the familiar lines on it, Zuyun's breathing became a little rapid. The painting methods of talismans are similar. Sun Suanhua once said that his Firebird Talisman was very different from others. Zuyun inherited his painting technique from him, so it was naturally impossible for him to admit his mistake. Putting down the Firebird Talisman, he took out everything inside. There were more than 1,000 pieces of spiritual stones, and Zuyun put them all into his bag. In addition, there is an identity plate broken in half, with the word Li Yan written on it. But Zuyun focused all his attention on a few ordinary mid-level high-level magic weapons, a few bottles of elixirs, some mid-level talismans, and a few pots of spiritual wine. These are all things refined by Master. Why are they in this pill formation stage? Could it be? Zuyun couldn't help but think about the worst. Because when they parted ways, Sun Suanhua was only in the early stages of foundation building. No, they all say that you need to see people when you are alive, and you need to see corpses when you die. These are just refined by Master, and... Zuyun glanced at the elixir and spirit wine, and continued to mutter to himself, the spirit wine is not old, it was just brewed. Although the elixir cannot be distinguished, it took less than a year to refine it. He took a deep breath, put all these things into his bag, and then looked at the nameplate. Li Huo Sect, Li Yan. It seems that it is necessary to go to Li Huo Sect to find news about the Master, but my realm is still weak now. At least you need to get to the core forming stage, in case the Master lives the same life as the Lingjian sect there. Besides, I know nothing about Li Huo section. It's better to go to Xian City to find out some information, otherwise my eyes will be completely black. After making the decision, Zuyun flew towards the north with his sword. He understood what Zhao Kamang meant. As long as he went all the way north, he could find Xian City. After flying for a few hours, Zuyun suddenly saw a piece of fire in the sky ahead. Spirit fire. He was doubtful, would the spiritual fire still fly in the sky? Go and have a look. If it's a spiritual fire, let Fen Tianyan swallow it up. If not, you won't waste much time. Thinking of this, Zuyun quickly flew over. It was only after he got closer that he discovered that it was a monk with a cloud of fire under his feet. It was obvious that the monk was flying with a weapon. His eyes narrowed. He had seen Li Yan's magic weapon, but the situation was urgent and there was no time to grab it. The volcano was about to erupt. Now it seems that this monk is probably a junior from the Li Huo sect, and his level is similar to his own, in the late stage of foundation building. But in terms of momentum, he is still slightly stronger. Looking at his direction, could he also be going to Xian City? It's time to get close and get some information. Zuyun rolled his eyes and leaned towards that side. While flying, he shouted, "Fellow Taoist in front, wait." After Li Mo left Li Huo sect, he wanted to get to Xian City as soon as possible. However, it was impossible for him to fly at the fastest speed for more than 1,000 miles, so he simply slowed down. Although slow, the victory lies in persistence. Because of this, Zuyun caught up from behind. When Zuyun was hanging far behind him, he noticed Zuyun, but ignored him. Now when he heard Zuyun calling him, he subconsciously stopped. But when Zuyunfei arrived in front of him, he didn't speak, and just looked at Zuyun indifferently. "Fellow Taoist, where are we going? If it's our way, you and I can go together." Zuyun didn't care, so he spoke directly. If you want to make friends with someone, it's always right to take the initiative. Don't mention it. If he has other thoughts, he will naturally show enthusiasm. Li Mo just tilted his head towards the north. Zuyun laughed and said, "Are you going to the north too, fellow Taoist?" It's really a good idea. Li Mo nodded. At this time, Zuyun felt something was wrong. Is this person a mute? But then I thought about it, how can any monk be mute? Then why don't you talk? If you don't want to take care of yourself, just wait or refuse directly. He was wondering, could it be that this disciple of the Luo sect burned out his brain by practicing the Luo curse? But looking at his clear eyes, it doesn't look like that. In order to avoid Li Mo feeling disgusted, Zuyun naturally did not ask questions, but said familiarly, "Fellow Taoist, next week, Yunzu. I just want to go to Xian City to gain knowledge. I don't know what I call you." Zuyun originally wanted to use Ergu's name, but when he thought that Sun Suanhua might be in Luo sect, he immediately went back to his original pseudonym. I thought that if Sun Suanhua was still alive, he might think of himself when he heard the name Yunzu. Li Mo said calmly, "Li Mo." Zuyun was stunned. I guess he is not a mute. But he had an incomprehensible attitude towards Li Mo. Call it indifferent, he said his name again. Let's talk about warmth, I said 2 words from beginning to end. Are all people in Chuzhu like this? For a moment, Zuyun couldn't figure out Li Mo's temper, so he smiled and said, "It turns out to be fellow Daoist Li. It seems that fellow Daoist Li is a disciple of the Li Fire sect." Li Mo did not speak this time, but nodded, turned around and continued flying towards the north. Zuyun had no choice but to follow him and asked, "Friend Li, have you been to Scarlet Flame City?" "I came from the extreme south, so I don't know what Scarlet Flame City is like." Fun. When Li Mo heard that Zuyun had never been there, he felt a subtle feeling in his heart for no apparent reason. "You haven't been there, but I have. Although it was many years ago." So he couldn't help wanting to show off, and he said 2 more words. Li Mo, who had been trapped in Luo sect for many years, was a little too excited at this time and forgot Li Tian's instructions. "How is it fun?" Zuyun pretended to be interested, but he couldn't help thinking in his heart, is this the words of a late-stage foundation building peak cultivator? I'm afraid it's not a child. However, this also suited his wishes. It means that this person's words are easy to trick. There are a lot of people. Li Mo didn't know how to describe it, after all, it's been many years. Zuyun almost fell off his sword. It was confirmed that this was a cultivator who had never seen the world. And usually, such people are easy to deceive. How many people are there? Zuyun's eyes turned, and he said, "There are a lot of people, which means there are a lot of dangers. Then we should travel together." "Yeah." When Li Mo nodded, he couldn't help but look at Zuyun more, thinking that what he said touched his heart. To be honest, he was still a little nervous about Xian City. After all, it was a big city, and there were many Jindan stage people walking back and forth. If there was someone to go with him, it would really give him courage. The most important thing was that Zuyun's realm was slightly weaker than his, and he took the initiative to stick to him, as if he was seeking his protection. And I was looking for someone, and when the time came, I could ask him to help, which would save a lot of effort, and I could take more time to see Xian City. By the way, fellow Daoist Li, what are you going to Xian City for? Zuyun began to ask questions unscrupulously. Looking for someone. Looking for someone? Looking for who? If it was before, Li Mo would not have said his purpose. But at this time, he had already regarded Zuyun as someone he could use, and he would have to tell him sooner or later, so it would be better to tell him now, so that he could directly ask him to help find it when he arrived in Xian City. Formation Master. Formation Master. Suddenly, Zuyun's face began to look strange. You want to break the formation? His first reaction was, did this kid find some formation to hide treasures, and then find someone to break it? But then he thought, could it be related to Sun Suanhua? Seeing Li Mo nod, Zhu Yun's mind couldn't help but become active, and said, Dai Li, I know a little about formations, why don't you let me try? This is a chance to sneak into the Luo sect openly, and it can't be wasted. Originally, it was said that he would break through to the Jindan stage before going, but even if it goes smoothly, it will take several years, right? When Li Mo heard Zhu Yun's words, he stopped immediately and said in surprise, you are only in the late stage of foundation building, how can you understand formations? I know a little bit. Zhu Yun's eyes were shining, and Li Mo's sudden change of speaking made him feel that this kid was not honest. Just now, he spoke no more than 2 words, and he was pretending. Ha ha ha, great. Sure enough, Li Mo was excited and said, fellow Daoist Joe, I was just worrying about how to find a formation master in Xian City. I didn't expect you to know one? That's great. Let's go. As he said that, Li Mo took Zhu Yun's hand and flew forward. Fellow Daoist Li, where are you going? Isn't this the direction of Xian City? Zhu Yun felt that his thoughts could not keep up with Li Mo. He, Li Mo let go of his hand and said excitedly, my father didn't give me a deadline, so I can go to Xian City to play around and come back. Why are you in such a hurry to go back to Luo sect? I'm going to be suffocated. Zhu Yun stared with his eyes full of disbelief. After a while, he asked, then fellow Daoist Li, why didn't you say more than 2 words before? Li Mo didn't care at all and said, before I came out, my father told me to talk less to strangers. So I said a few fewer words. Zhu Yun was speechless. So that's how it is, but this Li Mo, his brain is really sick. He said meaningfully, then why do you tell me more now? You are not a stranger, Li Mo said as a matter of course, look, you are the person I am looking for, this is different. Zhu Yun looked at the excited Li Mo and had analyzed all the information he inadvertently revealed in his words. He has a father, and seeing that Li Mo obviously has not seen the world, it means that he has a good position in Luo sect. There is no time limit, and it can be guessed that if it is to break Sun Suanhua's formation, it means that there is no rush. In this case, it is better to go to Xian City with him. First, you can prepare some things, and second, you can find out more about Lion sect. Don't worry, that's perfect. I've wanted to see Xian City for a long time. Zhu Yun laughed heartily and agreed with Li Mo's intention, which immediately made Li Mo like him more. He patted his chest and said, Daiojo, don't worry. My father is the sect master, he is very generous. If you can break the formation, you will definitely benefit from it. Suddenly, Zhu Yun laughed even more happily. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 262. Volcanic Belt. The smoke dissipated and the noise became smaller. Li Ju then slowly flew over, releasing his spiritual consciousness while looking around. Soon, he made a discovery. At the edge of a crack in the ground, the magma had just turned into lava, but there seemed to be a person underneath. Could it be him? Li Ju fell down and took a closer look. The lava was in the shape of a person. He would never believe that there was no one underneath. However, the magma had cooled and turned into hard volcanic rock, and was connected to the ground. This was not a problem for Li Ju. He took out a wine gourd and smashed it down. Boom! Some magma suddenly came out of the cracks around the ground, and cracks appeared where the gourd was smashed. As the cracks gradually extended, Li Ju actually dug out a large piece of volcanic rock. The human figure was wrapped in it. If he is Li Yan, I guess his storage bag is also burned, so I can only take him back to Li Tian to report to him, so as to avoid him making trouble for me. Li Ju was helpless. He took this huge volcanic stone and flew back to Luo sect in a short time. Sect Master Hall. Li Tian summoned all the elders. The death of a Jindan stage is a big deal for any sect. Everyone gathered around this huge volcanic stone and talked in a low voice. Silence. After seeing everyone gathered, Li Tian stood up from the first seat and said, "The one Li Ju brought back is most likely Li Yan. What do you think?" Everyone looked at Li Ju first, then quickly retracted their gaze and fell on the volcanic stone. The great elder spoke first, saying, "Master, from what I have seen, it is unknown whether it is Li Yan or not. Only by dismantling this volcanic stone can we know." "That's exactly what I meant," Li Tian sighed, and said, "I have used his soul card to sense it, but it may have been a long time, the soul power has dissipated, and the soul card has no reaction. The reason why you are here now is to ask you to give advice and brainstorm. It is easy to dismantle the volcanic stone, but it is obviously burned into one piece by the lava. It may be a bit difficult to preserve the body." Li Tian was telling the truth. Being able to maintain the human form means that his body has not been destroyed. This is because of Zhu Yun's negligence, or lack of experience. The magma in the volcano has an extremely high internal temperature and can be maintained all the time. If it was thrown into the volcano at that time, even if Li Yan was not burned to slag, it would not be so easy for Li Ju to find it. But in the outside world, no matter how hot the temperature is, it is very different from outside the volcano. The magma erupted from the volcano and the magma from the cracks in the ground will cool down rapidly after encountering air. Although the temperature is still very high, it cannot burn a corpse of an early stage of Jindan. Not to mention, Li Yan has practiced the Luo curse for hundreds of years and has a certain resistance to high temperatures. The magma can only bury him, but cannot burn him. Master, there is a way, but it just takes spiritual power and time. The second elder stood up and said, "What is the way? Tell me. Could it be that we, more than 10 Jindan stage people, can't even get a complete corpse?" Li Tian looked majestic. Even if he didn't care about Li Yan's death, he couldn't show it on his face. Otherwise, it would disperse people's hearts. Although he was at the highest level, if the three elders and others found some reason to join forces to deal with him, he would not be sure of winning. So no matter what you do, you need a reasonable excuse. Although the Luo sect is not as turbulent as the Lingjian sect back then, Li Tian has his own selfish desires and wants to pave the way for his son to cultivate immortality, so he needs to be more careful and avoid being gossiped about. Therefore, since Li Yan's body has been brought back, he wants to find a way to get it out, and then bury it in the ancestral temple. It requires subtle control of spiritual power, slowly burning with Luo. First burn the outer layer, then remove it, burn it again, and then remove it. In this way, you can always get the body of Elder Yan out. The third elder stood up and said, "This does take energy and time." Li Tian sighed, pretending to be troubled, and said, "But now there is no other way, so I can only try this. Elders, take turns according to the ranking. As the leader of the sect, I should lead by example, so let me go first." What several elders understand, he naturally understands better. Li Tian walked down from the first seat, and the elders around him made way for him. Li Tian stretched out his palm, and a stream of fire took shape instantly. Before he could make a move, the fire quickly turned into a dragon shape. The dragon-shaped fire sitting cross-legged in his palm. All the elders changed color. They could turn into dragons, and they had all kinds of forms. But they couldn't reach the level of Li Tian. How exquisite is this control! Like Li Yan's signature, it is the twin dragon fire, which seems powerful, but it is just a show. Of course, this is facing many elders and Li Tian here. Sometimes it is not the number that can win. In the volcano, Zhu Yun's realm is obviously lower, and there is only one fire dragon, but he collided with Li Yan's twin dragons. Admittedly, this is due to the effect of the fire spirit pearl purifying the fire spirit power, and also related to Zhu Yun's sneak attack. But after all, it is the realm of the Jindan period. The difference in realm can be made up by Zhu Yun, which is enough to explain. Go. With Li Tian's order, the little fire dragon instantly flew to the volcanic rock. Under his control, a small piece of volcanic rock began to emit hot steam and gradually turned red. When it softened completely, Li Tian asked the little fire dragon to bite off that piece directly. After a few hours, Li Tian sat back on the first seat panting, his face full of fatigue, and less than 20% of the spiritual power was left in his golden elixir. And the volcanic rock smashed by Li Ju has already taken on a human form. Master, you have worked hard, let me do it next. Even if the elder had complaints, he had nothing to say at this time. Because Li Tian was the first to end, he must be the second. Even the third one is the second elder, the fourth one is the third elder, and so on. It can only end when Li Yan's body is completely taken out. Damn it, it's over now. Li Yan, that old guy, should have died earlier or later. Why did he die suddenly? In a valley, Sun Suanhua threw a pot of wine in his hand to the ground in hatred. It has been nearly 10 years since he came to Luo sect. After leaving Yaluo sect, he went directly to the volcanic belt of Chuzhu to find spiritual fire. It is not only in such high-temperature places that spiritual fire can be found. But relatively speaking, the hotter the place, the higher the probability and grade of spiritual fire. He was lucky, and he encountered a ground fire as soon as he arrived. It took a lot of effort to subdue the ground fire, but he didn't expect to meet Li Yan. Li Yan saw the ground fire being subdued by Sun Suanhua with his own eyes. How could he let it go? Sun Suanhua is not strong, but he is not stupid. Knowing that he couldn't escape, he simply said, "If you dare to move, I will explode at the same time as the spiritual fire." Li Yan only wanted the earth fire, and it didn't matter whether he killed Sun Suanhua or not. The foundation building stage was nothing more than an ant to him. But if he let Sun Suanhua go, the earth fire would follow him. But if he didn't let him go, he couldn't get the earth fire. The two of them were deadlocked for a long time. Sun Suanhua was naturally no match for him, so he could only speak first and said, "Why do you want the spiritual fire? A mere foundation building stage, are you qualified to inquire about my news?" At that time, Li Yan was very disdainful. Sun Suanhua had already threatened to die, but if he could survive, he would naturally want to live, so he simply said, "It doesn't matter whether you say it or not. But I want to make a deal with you." Deal? Li Yan was even more disdainful, but he quickly agreed. Just because Sun Suanhua told him that he could make pills, refine weapons, and draw talismans for him. Of course, the materials were provided by him. Li Yan pondered for a moment and felt that it seemed feasible. Because he already had a ground fire, taking another one would only be icing on the cake. But Sun Suanhua's other abilities were a timely help to him. While he was hesitating, Sun Suanhua once again made a big announcement. "I am the current head of Yazhu. With this ground fire, I can refine more advanced pills." Suddenly, Li Yan no longer hesitated, and immediately took out his identity badge to prove his identity, and then swore an oath with Sun Suanhua to form an alliance. Li Yan helped Sun Suanhua practice, while Sun Suanhua helped him refine pills and make tools, etc. The time limit is 100 years, or Li Yan breaks through the nascent soul stage. After swearing, Li Yan took Sun Suanhua back to the Luo sect. In order to avoid being discovered, Li Yan also helped Sun Suanhua find countless materials and set up an extraordinary 9 turns 9 yang formation in his cave. This formation can be said to be all he has learned in his life, plus the materials given by Li Yan. It is simply another space. The Chuzhu cultivators are not good at formations, and it is even more impossible to discover it. The reason why Sun Suanhua learned about Li Yan's death was because the two of them swore together and kept the thought of the way of heaven. Now, the thought of the way of heaven suddenly dissipated. The most important thing is that you can't see the inside of the formation from outside, but inside the formation, he clearly saw Li Tian, who was at the peak of the late Jindan stage, coming to find someone. What does this mean? This means that the Luo sect knows his existence, but they just don't know where he is. It's really bad luck. Do I have to be trapped as soon as I work for the sect? Sun Suanhua's teeth were clattering. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 263. Not far outside Xi'an City, Zuyun and Li Mo fell from the sky. This is the largest city Zuyun has ever seen. After flying out of the volcanic belt, Zuyun's impression of Chuzhu was that of a deserted land. But compared to Yunzhou, the spiritual energy in the air is still much richer, and even compared to Yazhu, it is not far behind. But looking down from the sky, it looks more like a dark brown gobi land. There are many cracks in the ground, but there are very few that can spit fire. From time to time, you can also see some monsters. After feeling that Zuyun is not a stranger, Li Mo is simply a chatterbox. In a short time, not only was Zuyun able to figure out everything about Luo sect, but he also had a general understanding of Chuzhu. It is said that Chuzhu was not like this before, but thousands of years ago a powerful man came out, fought with people, and then smashed Chuzhu to pieces with a hammer. Later, after being beaten, he went to harm Yunzhou. Li Mo said that this was just a story he heard when he was very young. He didn't know whether it was true or false, but it aroused his desire to cultivate immortality. That's why he practiced desperately, until he reached the peak of the later stage of foundation establishment, and never left the Luo sect. Zuyun was not interested in Li Mo, but his words reminded Zuyun of the introduction he had read in Yunzhou Chronicles. 3,000 years ago, the battle between good and evil caused the Yunzhou earth line to rupture, resulting in the depletion of spiritual power. If that great power is real, then the ground in Yunzhou was also destroyed by him. How powerful is this? But there was no way to verify this. Zuyun just thought about it casually and then focused on Xi'an City. Fellow Daoist Zhou, Li Mo thought Zuyun was called Zhou Yunzu. Before preparing to walk into the city, he said solemnly, "Don't talk too much to strangers." Zuyun couldn't help laughing, but it aroused Li Mo's dissatisfaction. "Be serious, this is not a joke." "Yes, yes, yes." Zuyun put away his smile. No matter how much he wanted to laugh, he could only laugh from the bottom of his heart. Having been with Li Mo all the way, he had already figured out Li Mo's temper. He, the young master of Luo sect, is a bit interesting. At the city gate, the two were stopped by guards. Li Mo was a little puzzled. After all, he had never traveled far. The last time he came to Xi'an City was a long time ago, and he followed Li Tian. Fortunately, Zuyun gave him a hand and heard the guard say that it would cost 10 spiritual stones per person to enter the city. Zuyun took the initiative to take out 20 yuan and paid Li Mo's entrance fee. This moved Li Mo greatly, and he wanted to say thank you, but was stopped by Zuyun. He didn't know what the rules were in Xi'an City. But when Li Mo opens his mouth, he will definitely be recognized as a young child. There are many monks queuing up behind him, not only in the foundation building stage, but also in several elixir forming stages. The monks who kill people and seize treasures like to be untouched the most. The guard who took the spirit stone divided it into 2 parts and put 10 pieces into the mouth of a monster carved from black stone. Zuyun was shocked when he saw a flash of light at the city gate. Only then did he realize that the entire Scarlet Flame City was actually enveloped by a transparent formation. "Why don't you go in quickly? When the formation gate closes, you still have to hand over the spirit stone." The guard shouted impatiently, and Zuyun finally came to his senses and pulled Li Mo in through the city gate. "Fellow Daoist Joe, you have paid the city fee for me, I will treat you to a drink later." As soon as he entered the city, Li Mo was attracted by the prosperity and looked at the street and said to Zuyun. Zuyun was a little absent-minded. The reason why he was surprised at the city gate was because this formation was completely different from what he had learned. It can be said that it is completely beyond his scope. He has also deployed formations and seen many formations. But what remains the same is that they all need a stable supply of spiritual power. Moreover, they are almost always controlled by only one person. Those with higher attainments in formations can create formation discs and control formations within a certain range. Zuyun can do array formations, but not as well as Tang Zhuyang. But the key point is that a guard only needs to drop a few spirit stones to open a formation gate. He can't be the one controlling the formation. Moreover, Qian City occupies a large area, at least it has 4 gates, right? Each city gate only needs to hand over the spirit stone to open the formation gate. How strong must the person setting up the formation be? Zuyun couldn't imagine it. He felt that Sun Suanhua definitely couldn't do it. "Fellow Daoist Joe, you look like you have never seen the world. Come on, shall I take you to drink?" Seeing that there was no response to his words, Li Mo turned around and saw Zuyun in deep thought, thinking that he had never seen such prosperity before. He is even willing to pay the city fee for himself. How can such a person be dealt with? "Don't be in a hurry to drink, let's go shopping first." Zuyun originally just wanted to find out more about Chuzhu, but after all, the credibility he got from Li Mo was not high. But at this time, he couldn't help but want to find out what was mysterious about this city defense formation. Maybe it would also be helpful to his own formation. "Let's go shopping. Do you want to buy something? Do you want elixirs or magic weapons?" On the way here, the two of them agreed to go to the restaurant first, but why did they change their minds when they entered the city? Li Mo was a little strange. "Just take a look," Zuyun said with a smile, "I have never been to such a big city." Li Mo also laughed and said, "Okay, let's go shopping, but it's getting late. We'll find an inn to stay at later. But this time, I'm here to bring out the spirit stone. Don't grab it from me." After saying that, he patted his chest. In Luo sect, Li Tian strictly ordered him not to have any interaction with the Foundation establishment disciples. As for those Danja elders, let him treat them like uncles. It was rare to meet someone of the same level who could talk to him, and Li Mo was in a good mood. Zuyun nodded, and then followed the city wall, planning to walk around Xian City. But unfortunately, in the city, Zuyun didn't feel like he was in the formation at all. This formation seems to be invisible. Could it be that the secondary formation eye is the stone sculpture? Zuyun couldn't help but think. Li Mo followed Zuyun with a look of lack of interest, but seeing Zuyun watching as he walked, he couldn't bear to dampen his interest. It wasn't until the sky got dark that he said, "Fellow Daoist Joe, are you done? If you continue walking, I will think you are here to patrol." Zuyun also knew that there would be nothing gained if he continued walking, so he said, "Let's go have a drink." A smile appeared on Li Mo's face. The two of them walked casually and turned onto the street, where they saw a restaurant with red lanterns hanging on it. Tang's restaurant. Zuyun frowned. There was nothing special about this sect. It's just this Chinese character Tang. It reminded him of two people named Tang. Tang Zhuyang and Atang. The ancestral treasure of the Tang family is the solution to the formation, and this Scarlet Flame City has a large formation that he cannot understand. Could this be related? Let's go. Do you think this restaurant is high-end and you can't afford the spiritual stones? Li Mo pulled Zuyun, then laughed softly and said, "It's okay, Mr. Li will pay for today's consumption." Zuyun was speechless and walked in with Li Mo. Two fellow Taoists, would you like to stay in a hotel or drink? A Jiji period dressed as a waiter came up to him with a smile. Zuyun couldn't help but take another look. Can you only be a waiter during the foundation building period? I'm afraid yes, who didn't do this, right? Stay in the hotel and drink first. Li Emo was used to Zuyun always being in a daze, and felt that Zuyun had never seen the world. He didn't mean to look down on him, but thought that he had worked hard and should be more patient along the way. Also, he said he was a formation master. Maybe he was practicing hard in a deserted land, right? Okay, you two please come over here. The waiter made an inviting gesture and led the two of them to the counter. There is no difference from all the restaurants and shops that Zuyun has seen. There was a container inside the counter, and a jar of unopened wine was placed on the container. There is one room left, Xianxia number 3, 50 spirit stones a day, how about the two of you? The waiter turned over the book and said. Ken. Li Emo nodded to confirm. The waiter smiled and took out a sign, and said with a smile, this is the door array key. You need this to enter the room. If fellow Taoist goes out, be sure not to lose it. If you are afraid of trouble, you can also it can be kept here temporarily. Li Emo took the array key and stuffed it into his arms, and took out some more spirit stones. The waiter took it with a smile, said polite words, took out 50 spiritual stones and divided them into 2 piles. Then he put one pile into the counter, picked up the other pile, and turned around behind the counter. When Zuyun heard the introduction of the formation key, he was a little surprised that there was even a formation in the room. But when the waiter left, his attention was immediately drawn to him. Why did the spirit stone need to be divided into 2 parts? Do you want to take the other portion somewhere else? Until Xiao stopped and threw the spirit stone into the mouth of a stone monster beast, his pupils suddenly shrank. This is exactly the same as the one at the city gate. Even if it is a deputy formation, it is impossible to even have an inn, right? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 264. Zuyun originally thought that there were 4 array eyes on the 4-sided city wall for releasing spirit stones. This was used as the source of spiritual power to maintain the city defense array. But what he saw before him completely overturned his understanding of the array. Even if it was a secondary array eye, was it arranged so casually? Daiojo, what are you looking at? Go drink. Behind him, Li Emo pulled Zuyun, and the waiter turned around and saw Zuyun's expression, and couldn't help but explain with a smile, this Daiyu, this should be the first time to come to our Xian city, right? Zuyun nodded, and the waiter returned to the counter while smiling, our Xian city is different from other places. As long as you open a store here to do business, you need to feed spirit stones to the stone sculpture to protect the safety of the storefront. Zuyun was surprised again. Every store has it? He took a breath of cold air. This hand was far beyond his imagination. The person who set up the array in Xian City was too terrifying. Since this is your first time here, why don't you try the specialties of Xian City? The waiter may have seen a lot, and didn't know that Zuyun was surprised because of something deeper, so he started to promote it without taking it seriously. Yes. Li Emo quickly responded and pulled Zuyun to sit at a table. Daiojo, can you stop looking like a country boy? How embarrassing. Hearing this slightly complaining tone, Zuyun felt helpless, as if you have more experience than me. But he would not dwell on this matter, and there was no need to explain to Li Emo. In fact, if he did this, Li Emo would believe him more. Haven't you seen it before? Zuyun scratched his head deliberately and said. When you go out, talk less, eat more vegetables, and stand up if you can't reach it. When the waiter served a few cold dishes, Li Emo said with a look of disgust. Zuyun was amused by this pretentious look. But he still had to agree with him. After satisfying his appetite, Li Mo took the initiative to pay the spirit stone, and the waiter, like before, put half of it into the mouth of the stone monster. While waiting for the waiter to come back and lead the way, Li Mo also reminded Zuyun not to take it too seriously, so as not to be laughed at. Room number 3 of Xianxia is on the 3rd floor. After the waiter took the two to the door, he left. Zuyun said to Li Mo, "Dai Li, can I have the array key?" "Take it." Li Mo thought Zuyun was quite sensible. Yes, this kind of trivial matter of opening the door must be done by him. He threw the array key to Zuyun casually, and the two entered the room together. At the moment of entering the door, Zuyun quickly felt a flash of array pattern on the array key in his hand, and before he could feel it carefully, the array pattern had disappeared. It came quickly and went quickly. After the two entered the room, there was another array pattern on the array key. This time, Zuyun found that the spiritual power at the door had a slight fluctuation. It was like an invisible formation that separated the room. "Finally I can lie down for a while. It's 1,000 miles, so far." Li Mo threw himself on the bed as if no one was around. Zuyun found a chair and sat down, put the formation key on the table, probed into his spiritual sense carefully, and planned to investigate it carefully. After a moment, he suddenly realized. What formation key? Isn't this just a simple formation plate? It is only used to enter and exit the formation, which is extremely simple. Fellow Daoist Joe, why are you looking at that thing? Didn't I tell you not to look like you have never seen the world? It would be bad if someone saw you. Li Mo sat up from the bed and saw Zuyun in a daze again, and said unhappily. If it's all like this, then there's nothing good to visit in Xian City. It's impossible to be in a daze when you see a new object. What a waste of time. Zuyun smiled and said, "Dai Li, you take a break first. I think this is quite interesting." What's so interesting about a broken key? There are many more interesting things in Xian City. I'll take you to see it when it's done. Now, I want to practice. Li Mo sat up cross-legged, and after saying that, he entered the state of practice, which made Zuyun stunned. After thinking about it, he decided to go out and see for himself. When the two of them went together tomorrow, he couldn't stand Li Mo following him and saying that he had never seen the world. "Dai Li, you should practice well, and I won't bother you here," Zuyun said, and then he took the array key and walked out. When he went out, the array key did not flash, but walked out very easily. Zuyun didn't find this strange. Maybe this array only limits entry but not exit. Walking all the way outside, although it was dark, the streets were still extremely prosperous. Zuyun walked and looked, and suddenly found that there were no stalls here. Logically speaking, such a large city should have a constant flow of pedestrians even at night. It seems that this Xian city is either strictly managed and no one dares to set up a stall, or it is extremely chaotic and there is no guarantee for setting up a stall. Zuyun remembered what the waiter said, that every shop has a stone-carved monster, so he guessed so. After walking for a while, Zuyun suddenly saw a shop selling talismans. He immediately thought that he had run out of materials for drawing intermediate talismans, so he went to buy some. Take a look at whether there are really stone-carved monsters in this shop. As soon as he entered the door, a waiter came to greet him. Zuyun asked for intermediate talisman paper, cinnabar, and other things. After paying the waiter with spirit stones, Zuyun saw that the waiter also divided half of the spirit stones and threw them into the mouth of a stone-carved monster in the dark. After the waiter had prepared everything, Zuyun thought for a moment and asked, "Xiao, can't I give you less of these spiritual stones?" "No way." The waiter handed the things over, shook his head repeatedly and said, "Isn't it that fellow Taoist thought that this was for paying taxes? Isn't it?" Zuyun followed his words. There is no tax in Xian City, but it is enough to say that these spiritual stones are protection fees. Seeing that the store was not too busy, the waiter said a few more words. These spiritual stones will eventually be used in our store. Each of our stores has formation protection, and it is the spiritual stones that provide spiritual energy. Otherwise, if the beast wave comes, our store will not be able to survive. Tide of beasts. Zuyun was surprised. In such a big city, is it still afraid of the beast tide? Is that large array outside vegetarian? Yes, when the beast tide comes, we all have to lock the door tightly. If the business is poor, and if there are few spiritual stones, the formation will not be strong enough, and it will be easily destroyed by the beast tide. When the time comes, when you encounter someone who is weak, you won't even have time to run, and you will have to die in the mouth of a monster. So, stores with poor business cannot survive in Xian City. Because they are really risking their lives to earn spiritual stones. But the beast tide comes at night, so there will be stalls on the street during the day, but not at night. No one dares. As he said this, the waiter himself laughed. At this time, another guest happened to come in. The waiter quickly threw Zuyun aside and greeted him. Zuyun was thinking on the spot. Xian City neither collects taxes nor cares about the beast tide, passing all risks to the shops. Then they only rely on the entrance fee of 10 spiritual stones per person as their income. Of these $10, half must be invested in the stone sculpture monsters to maintain the city defense formation. And from Xiao Er's words, we can know that this formation does not care about the beast tide and allows them to rush in. Back then, in the waters near Wangxian sect, Zuyun and Sun Qiniang had killed each other until the sky was dark and the earth was dark, and they knew very well that the number of ants would kill an elephant. If Sun Qiniang hadn't saved his life, he would have died long ago. Thinking of this, Zuyun decided to go back to the inn for the time being. If he is unlucky and encounters a tide of beasts, no one will help him. The waiter was preparing things for the new guests. Zuyun didn't say hello and walked straight outside. But not long after walking, a sharp whistle came from outside the city. Suddenly, the street became extremely chaotic. The monks, who were still chatting and laughing in a leisurely and elegant manner, ran in all directions. Some people went directly to the store. It's a pity that the store's response was faster than theirs, which directly shut down these monks. Is this a tide of beasts coming? Zuyun was shocked and quickly ran towards Tang's inn. After running for more than 10 steps, he saw formation patterns flashing around the entire Scarlet Flame city. But just a moment later, all the formation patterns disappeared. From all directions, there were loud roars of beasts, and at the same time, the ground of Xian City began to shake, as if the ground was collapsing. Zuyun felt chills all over his body. He couldn't understand the formation, but why did he remove the formation without understanding it? You really can't stop the beast tide. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 265. From a distance, Zuyun saw several flames leaping out from the end of the street, that is, from the direction of the city gate. After these flames entered the city, they immediately dispersed and rushed towards the shops on both sides. Zuyun was shocked. These were not flames, but various kinds of fire monsters. They were on fire and attacked recklessly. Some monks who were closer to the city gate were torn to pieces in an instant. The air was filled with the smell of fireworks and blood. Zuyun felt that his head was about to explode. The monsters were coming fiercely. At this time, he was still some distance away from Tang's inn. I'm afraid he ran back. From the corner of his eyes, he saw that the shops on both sides had already closed their doors. And right in front of him, some monks were running towards him frantically with panic. Behind them, the chasing monster fire was like a sea of fire. Run! At this time, Zuyun didn't dare to run to Tang's inn, so he could only turn around and run towards the center of the city. There were cultivators being thrown to the ground, bitten and wailing. The whole Xian city was filled with grief. By the way, can't we fly? Suddenly, this thought popped up in Zhu Yun's mind. He was taking out the spirit sword from the storage bag, but he didn't expect that there would be a burst of whistling sounds in the air. He looked up quickly and saw countless flames flying over. Firebird monsters. He realized that the sky was like dumplings, and countless cultivators were forced to fall. Those who flew slowly and had low realms had the same fate as the cultivators on the ground. Those who were lucky could leave their bodies intact. Those who were unlucky were directly torn to pieces or burned to ashes by the firebirds in the sky. What to do? Zhu Yun frantically operated the chaotic spiritual power and stepped on the Changshengju footwork. He knew very well that since the sky was surrounded by the firebird monsters, there would naturally be monsters besieging the city on the ground. Even if he ran to the center of the city, he might be blocked by monsters from the other three directions. Is he going to die here? Zhu Yun did not stop despite thinking about it. Hysterical roars came from behind him from time to time. They were all from those cultivators. Beast, I'm going to fight you. I can't run anymore, kill one to protect my capital, kill two, ah. If I had known, I would have practiced well at the beginning. These voices reminded him that he would die if he stopped. In order to save spiritual power, Zhu Yun did not release his spiritual consciousness, but instead accelerated his speed and surpassed the cultivators one by one. These are all foundation building stage. Zhu Yun did not dare to guarantee how long he could run before he could find a chance to hide in the Dao glass mirror. But at least, he had to run faster than other cultivators at this time. Unknowingly, a palace-like castle suddenly appeared in front of him. And outside the city wall, there were countless cultivators standing, most of them were foundation building stage, and there were also many in the Jindan stage. They talked in a flurry, shouting to open the door. But no one in the city responded. An early Jindan was so angry that he slapped the door with his hand. Boom! With a loud noise, a formation pattern flashed in an instant. This formation pattern actually penetrated the body of the early Jindan and cut him in half. Zhu Yun was shocked. The lethality of this formation pattern was so great that a Jindan body could not withstand it. As the two halves of the body fell to the ground, a golden elixir flew out of it. Perhaps because he was afraid that the formation would attack again, he hurriedly flew towards the sky, trying to escape the encirclement of the firebirds with the flexibility of the golden elixir. But he never thought that a giant firebird suddenly flew out of the group of firebirds. With a crown-like flame on its head, it swooped down with a scream. The golden elixir had nowhere to hide, and it could not escape the firebird that was so fast, and was swallowed in one bite. Almost everyone saw this scene, and their faces were filled with fear. A Jindan Genren died just like that. City Lord Tang, please, open the door and let us in. City Lord Tang, as long as I can save my life today, I am willing to serve Xian City for the rest of my life. City Lord Tang, after entering the city, I will swear to the heavenly Dao that I can be anything I want. Witnessing the death of a Jindan stage cultivator with their own eyes raised their cowardice to an extremely terrifying level. But no matter what they did, the castle remained unmoved. And at this time, no one dared to attack the gate. Otherwise, they would die faster. Zhu Yun took all this into consideration. Instead of staying here and waiting to die, he might as well find a place to hide in the Dao glass mirror. Thinking of this, he quickly turned into a small alley. Now, the cultivators who are still alive are basically running towards the city center on the street. The monsters haven't come here yet. If we wait a little longer, there will probably be too many people around. If someone uses this information to exchange for the qualification to enter the city, Zhu Yun will suffer. Zhu Yun had no choice but to fight. I hope that the endless sea of fire from the monsters won't burn the Dao glass mirror. With such worries, Zhu Yun appeared in the cave in the mirror. Before he sat down to take a breath, he saw an old book on the stone shelf. The solution of the array? Tang family. Suddenly, Zhu Yun's heart skipped a beat. Atang said that the solution of the array was an ancestral item of the Tang family. I just heard someone calling City Lord Tang. If this City Lord Tang is from the Atang family, I wonder if at this price, can I get the right to enter the city? In this way, at least the danger of the Dewu glazed mirror being discovered and taken away, or being burned by demon fire, is avoided. The key is that Atang said that if he meets anyone from the Tang family, he will return the solution to the formation. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun grabbed the solution to the formation from the air and stuffed it into his storage bag. Then his figure flashed again and appeared in the alley out of thin air. In the outside world, less than 10 breaths have passed, and no one has noticed Zhu Yun at all. Zhu Yun rushed out of the alley, his dantian condensed slightly, and then roared. City Master Tang. I have the explanation of formation Dao, which was entrusted by the descendants of the Tang family, and I am here to return it. This sound was full of energy, and Zhu Yun gathered the spiritual power of chaos. It penetrated straight into the castle. After a few breaths, formation patterns flashed again outside the castle, followed by a majestic voice, "Enter." As soon as the voice fell, not only did the formation open a hole, but no one opened the door by himself. When the monks saw this, they rushed there one after another. But without exception, as long as someone approaches the gate, the array patterns will burst into glory and strangle them instantly. A strange look flashed in Zhu Yun's eyes. This Tang city lord was so indifferent. But he couldn't protect himself at this time. If it weren't for the anatomy of formation, he would probably be one of them. In his ears, the roar of the monster was getting closer and closer. Although Zhu Yun was dissatisfied, he could only run towards the door. When he was only a few steps away from the door, suddenly a boundless spiritual power enveloped him. Zhu Yun was shocked, and before he could respond, the monks each rushed towards him crazily. No, these people must be trying to steal my anatomy of formation and enter the city. He reacted immediately, and his compassion for these people disappeared without a trace. No wonder the Lord of Tang City refused to let them in. It turned out that he had foresight. But right now, the crisis still needs to be solved. The person who was suppressing him was a mid-level pill-forming master, who was already grabbing him with a palm. The target is the storage bag on Zhu Yun's waist. Fortunately, otherwise, if he wanted to kill Zhu Yun, he would never be able to fight back. Once he uses the chaos palm, he will be killed by the other monks when his spiritual power is exhausted. Zhu Yun turned his left hand to hold the talisman in his hand, and then took the initiative to meet the almost invincible grasp. At the same time, spiritual consciousness quickly formed a connection with the fire spirit bead. Boom! As the sound of the talisman being shaken open by the talisman in the middle stage of forming the pill sounded, a sea of fire rose up with Zhu Yun as the center. It wasn't that he was too late to use these fire spiritual powers to drive Li Huo. But Zhu Yun remembered that Li Mo said that he should be careful when he came here. He was afraid that Li Huo sect and Qian city would not be able to deal with him. If so, it would be a big mistake if he was mistaken for a member of the Li Huo sect, and instead he came to seek death. But fortunately, the fire spirit power itself is absorbed from the magma and purified by the fire spirit beads. Zhu Yun only needs to make a slight change, and the fire spirit power can quickly turn into fire. So hot! What a powerful fire power! Is there a tide of beasts coming? No, it's impossible. The beast wave hasn't arrived yet. Could it be the fire bird in the sky spitting out fire to kill this kid? Together with the fire, Zhu Yun was also wrapped in it. Of course these fires will not hurt Zhu Yun, but they remind Zhu Yun. Fire escape technique. With just a thought, Zhu Yun had already entered the gate. Only this boundless sea of fire was left, constantly burning those monks. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 266. While these monks were wailing and wondering, the sound of the door closing finally alarmed everyone. I want to go in too. Wait for me. Please. No matter how these people called, the castle remained the same as before, making no sound at all. Despair crept into these faces. It was the first time for these people to experience the beast tide in Xian City. Because they have long heard that under the beast tide in Scarlet Flame City, monks without the protection of the formation, even if they are in the elixir formation stage, will die without a burial place. Zuyun looked nervous and stood still. The empty yard made him feel very uncomfortable. The most important thing is that after the door is closed, he can't hear a sound from the outside world. He was not used to the sudden silence from an extremely noisy environment. Except for the pounding sound of the heart, the surroundings were eerily silent. He subconsciously clenched the talisman in his hand. 3 more times available. Little fellow Taoist, there is no need to be nervous. At this time, a calm voice came from all directions. Zuyun was suddenly startled and wanted to find the person in the direction of the sound, but found that he was nowhere to be found. Until right in front of the lobby, a smiling middle-aged man walked out. His whole body has almost no momentum at all. He looks more like a mortal. The peak of the late stage of pill formation? Impossible. It is said that only the nascent soul stage can achieve the state of returning to nature. Lord of Tang City. Zuyun's hand holding the talisman was sweating. Because this talisman has no effect on the nascent soul stage. My little fellow Taoist, what do you call me? The middle-aged man did not agree directly, but obviously admitted his identity. And while he was talking, he was already standing not far in front of Zuyun. Just a few steps away. Zuyun was horrified. He obviously only saw him take 2 steps, why was he so close? Is this what Master once said, shrinking into an inch? Zhou Yunzu. Zuyun looked at City Lord Tang, who didn't seem to have any hostility at all, and still used a pseudonym. It turns out to be Xiaozhou. City Lord Tang smiled slightly and said, since Xiaozhou is a friend of the descendants of my Tang family, he is naturally also a friend of my Tang family. Please come with me. With that said, City Lord Tang turned around, took 2 more steps, and returned to his original position. Zuyun took a deep breath and followed. But something magical happened. He only felt his eyes flicker, and when he came to his senses again, he was already standing in front of the lobby door. Suddenly, he realized. This is bullshit. This is clearly a formation. I almost scared myself to death. Little friend Zhou, were you frightened by the shrinking formation below? City Lord Tang stood at the door, turned around and smiled. Zuyun smiled and said, City Lord Tang, I have never seen such a mysterious formation. Young friend Zhou, don't be humble, please come in and talk. Facing such kind words, Zuyun felt a little uncomfortable for a while, and still felt a little defensive in his heart. When City Lord Tang said that this was a formation, although he breathed a sigh of relief, he did not relax. With his attainments in formations at this time, he could create similar effects through the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. But just now, he didn't realize it was a formation at all. It is enough to show that Tang City Lord's formation is far superior to him. Even, far above Sun Suanhua. Feeling slightly uneasy, Zuyun entered the lobby. City Lord Tang invited Zuyun to sit down together at the head of the hall, which made him feel nervous again. From beginning to end, City Lord Tang was always polite, which made him even more afraid to relax. As the saying goes, a smile hides a knife, nothing better than this. Perhaps, if he takes out the explanation of the formation, City Lord Tang will kill people and silence them. Wait. Zuyun woke up suddenly. I seem to be thinking too much. With the strength of City Lord Tang, it would be too easy to kill him. Why wait to take out the explanation of the formation? After you kill me, can't you take it from the storage bag? But you are so polite. The key is, when I was outside the castle, I specifically said to return the solution to the formation, so he would have no reason to kill me. In an instant, Zuyun figured it out, and his nervous look relaxed. Little friend Zhou, are you not nervous anymore? And this scene fell in the eyes of City Lord Tang, and he spoke. Zuyun smiled sheepishly, found an excuse, and said, don't be surprised, Lord Tang, the people in the world of immortality are unpredictable. Even just now, there was a person in the middle stage of pill formation who wanted to kill me. Ha ha ha, City Lord Tang laughed and said, indeed, if it weren't for this, I wouldn't have ignored their life or death. What does City Lord Tang mean? Little friend Zhou, you have already said that people's hearts are unpredictable. Why do you still ask this question? Is it possible that, with the strength of City Lord Tang, he is afraid that letting those monks in will endanger your life? Upon hearing this, City Lord Tang was stunned for a moment, and then laughed out loud. Zuyun was even more puzzled and found it difficult to ask questions. When he finished laughing, he realized that City Lord Tang actually burst into tears from laughter. Is it that funny? When Zuyun was extremely confused, City Lord Tang wiped the corners of his eyes, looking a little out of breath, and made 2 cups of tea with his own hands. He handed 1 cup to Zuyun and placed another cup in front of himself, then he said, excuse me, Mr. Zhou. Could you please show me the solution to the array? If it is genuine, I will definitely reward you handsomely. After saying that, he stood up solemnly and bowed to Zuyun, his expression very serious. Zuyun was not used to the courtesy of a powerful senior. Not to mention that you should not hit a smiling person, if City Lord Tang threatened him, he could only take it out. This is what it means to be under someone's roof and bow your head. However, after making sure that City Lord Tang did not intend to kill him, Zuyun was much more relaxed, and he would not play any tricks. He reached out and took out the solution to the array and respectfully placed it in City Lord Tang's hand. Instantly, he felt City Lord Tang's hand tremble, and his voice also became trembling. Really, it's real. This is an heirloom of my Tang family. That's right. He slowly turned the first page, and suddenly burst into tears. This is the notes of the ancestor. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. The experience of the 2nd generation of the head of the family is useful, useful. The 3rd generation, haha, I understand, I understand. Every time he turned a page, the City Lord Tang was like crazy, as if he had realized the supreme way from the solution of the array Dao, and his expression was extremely excited. Zuyun knew that even if he didn't practice, he could still embark on the immortal path by specializing in a certain way. Some people, while reading books, realized the truth. Some people, while farming, also realized the truth. Some people, after sleeping, became cultivators when they woke up. There are 3,000 great ways, and everything can become a way. However, cultivating spiritual power is the easiest way for people to become cultivators. And if one comprehends the Dao of formation, the Dao of elixir, the Dao of weapon and other methods, one can also break through the shackles. At this moment, City Lord Tang seemed to have broken through a great realm, and Zuyun suddenly felt that he was redundant. Because City Lord Tang seemed to treat him as non-existent. Zuyun couldn't stand or sit, so he simply decided to go outside the lobby to have a look. While City Lord Tang was comprehending the Dao of formation, he could observe his shrinking formation and perhaps gain something. Zuyun walked on tiptoe, fearing that he would make a little noise and disturb City Lord Tang's enlightenment. Just as he walked to the door and hadn't stepped out, he heard City Lord Tang suddenly laugh, and Zuyun was so frightened that he didn't dare to put down his raised foot. Ha ha ha, I understand, I understand. I broke through, I finally broke through. Tang family ancestors, please accept Tang Tiangong's worship. As soon as the voice fell, Zuyun turned his head quickly. I saw City Lord Tang kneeling on the ground, and kowtowed 3 times in his direction. This sudden scene completely frightened Zuyun. Until City Lord Tang stood up, his hair was disheveled, his forehead was bloody, and he walked towards Zuyun quickly. My dear Zhou, return the ancestral things of the Tang family, and wish me, Tang Tiangang, to break through. It is said that a drop of water should be repaid with a spring. You have done me 2 favors in one day, please accept Tang's greetings first. Just as Zuyun was stunned, Tang Tiangang suddenly knelt down and kowtowed again. At this time, his mind was completely confused. Tang Tiangang, the senior who returned to his original nature, actually knelt down to him because of a breakthrough? Wait, that's not right? Even if he is a supreme power, it is impossible for him to break through without any spiritual power fluctuations. Could he be? When he was shocked, Tang Tiangang had already stood up, as if he had guessed what Zuyun was thinking. He smiled and said, "My dear Zhou, please take a seat. If you have any questions, I am willing to answer them for you. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 267. Only then did Zuyun realize that Tang Tiangong's self-identification had changed from under to Tang. Is this appropriate? Faintly, Zuyun made a bold guess. However, he could not prove it. Fortunately, Tang Tiangang said that he was willing to help him clear up his doubts, so he followed him and sat back to his original position. The cup of tea has cooled down, but the aroma is still there. Zuyun drank it in one gulp, and then looked at Tang Tiangang with an inexplicable expression. "Little friend Zhou, have you noticed that besides you and me, is there anyone else in my mansion?" As soon as Tang Tiangang opened his mouth, his words were shocking. When Zuyun first came in, his first reaction was to be quiet. It was eerily quiet. Except for the formation that isolates the noise from the outside world, there is no sound even inside. So what this means is he the only one here? Seeing that Zuyun didn't speak, Tang Tiangang showed a meaningful smile. "Young friend Zhou, you have already said that people in the world of immortality are unpredictable, and Tang is also a person who is afraid of death." Zuyun suddenly raised his head and saw Tang Tiangang again and said, "Tang comes from the Tang family and has no ability to protect himself. Only this array can take action. But it is impossible for Tang to set up death formations everywhere just to protect himself. Let's not talk about Tang's lack of ability. Even if he is successful, the consumption of spiritual power is an astronomical figure." After hearing this, Zuyun felt vaguely as if he had caught something. But what is clear is that the stone monsters in the entire Xian city were made by Tang Tiangang. But City Lord Tang, Qian city occupies such a large area, and there are many monks coming and going. The entrance fee alone is a considerable amount of income, right? Zuyun gave up the thoughts in his mind and asked instead. Tang Tiangang laughed, then filled Zuyun's teacup, put down the teapot, and then said, "The city entrance fee is very important. If the charge is high, fewer people will come in. If the charge is less, there will be fewer people coming in. The more people there are, the more people a city can develop." What City Lord Tang means is, the more people there are, the faster the beast tide will recede when it comes. Zuyun's heart suddenly jumped. He stood up and said in shock, "City Lord Tang, are you treating those monks as food for monsters? A slightly intelligent monster that likes to eat humans. Whether a mortal or a monk. Zuyun can accept people killing monsters, and he can also accept monsters killing people. But you can't see that Tang Tiangang did it on purpose. Little friend Joe, Tang Tiangang looked indifferent, took a sip of tea, and said, everyone knows the rules of Xian City. I have never forced them to come to Xian City, and I have never forced them to walk at night. Everything. It's their own choice. If you want to force this crime on Tang, Tang will have nothing to say. Even if you want to do justice for heaven, just use your sword to cut off Tang's head. Zuyun looked at Tang Tiangang with some confusion. There seemed to be some truth to what he said. Since entering the city, the people he has seen are extremely free and unfettered. The waiters in the shop were also kind-hearted, especially the waiter at the talisman shop, who even told him the situation in Xian City in detail. Only then did he know about the beast tide at night. Even when you put in spiritual stones, you only need to use as many as you need. I have also wondered why I should put a little less and keep more for myself. But at this moment, he understood. In Xian City, everything is done voluntarily. The monks who set up stalls all know that they cannot set up stalls at night. They still wander around in the night market. It can only be said that they are to blame. Seeing Zuyun's silence, Tang Tiangang sighed and said, little friend Zhou, who can send back my explanation of formation Dao should be from Yazhu, right? If I hadn't gone to Wanjian Mountain to teach formation Dao back then, how can I become so ruthless? All this, I just want to live well so as not to interrupt the inheritance of my Tang family. Wanjian Mountain. Zuyun came to his senses and realized that there seemed to be something hidden in Tang Tiangong's words. He has no good impression of Wanjianshan. He is sanctimonious and calls himself a righteous man, but his behavior is indiscriminate and indiscriminate. Yes, hundreds of years ago, I can't remember clearly, whether it was 500 years or 800 years. Tang Tiangang fell into memories, and scenes flashed before his eyes. Zuyun thought of the other side. To be able to live for such a long time, it seems that he must be in the nascent soul stage. But why can't I remember how many years have passed since I was in the nascent soul stage? With such questions, Zuyun concentrated his attention again and listened to Tang Tiangong's explanation of what happened that year. When Tang Tiangang was only more than 10 years old, he showed his extremely high talent for formations. But Tang Tiangang was not well received. Tang Tiangang did not say why. Genius among the rubbish. This is what all his peers in the Tang family call him. Tang Tiangang didn't take it seriously and kept his ears closed to the world's affairs. He kept studying the formations and mastered the basics of all the formations to a high level. Among the clan members, they ridiculed him more than once, saying that he could only play with elementary formations in his life. Over time, he was forgotten. But Tang Tiangang has his own ideas. He believes that no matter what avenue, it should focus on the basics and start from simplicity to complexity. This is the best principle. The tribesman thought he was giving a reason why he was not qualified to study more profound formations, but only Tang Tiangang knew it. A formation pattern can be drawn in various ways. Then there are thousands of combinations of two formation patterns. As long as you know all these combinations well, no matter what kind of formation it is, you can grasp it at your fingertips and understand it clearly. Not to mention the formation, at least when he sees a formation, he knows how to break it. But it's easy to say, but how difficult is it to do? By the time Tang Tiangang remembered all the combinations of the three formation patterns, he already had not long left to live. He was unwilling to accept that he would not be able to master the fourth formation pattern in his lifetime, so he walked out of his small courtyard and wanted to ask the father of the family if he could help him increase his lifespan. However, in the house of the head of the family, all the clan members knelt on the ground. In the center, only one person stands. The immortal Taoist man had a murderous aura and was holding a sword on his father's neck. When he heard this, Zuyun's breathing became rapid. Can the entire clan kneel down? Is this the time when the Tang family is exterminated? Then, how did you survive? Zuyun asked quickly. He remembered that Tang Tiangang said before that he went to Wanjian Mountain to teach the formation. Tang Tiangang smiled and said, "Little friend Zhou, don't interrupt. If you don't believe it, just listen to it as a story." After finishing speaking, he started talking again as if talking to himself. Seeing this scene, Tang Tiangang suddenly threw 3 spirit stones. He has mastered 3 formation patterns, just using 3 spirit stones. The Danja period had a look of contempt on his face and allowed Tang Tiangang to throw out the 3 spiritual stones. Tang's father kept screaming and asked Tang Tiangang to kneel down and beg for mercy. Unexpectedly, after the 3 spirit stones fell on the side of the Danja stage, they quickly flashed 3 formation patterns, and actually trapped the strong person in the Danja stage. Everyone looked up in disbelief, so surprised that they forgot that their bodies were in instinctive fear and were trembling. Everyone in the Tang family knows the way of formation. But I can't see what formation these 3 spiritual stones have set up. Boy, do you have some skills. In shock, the Danja sword stabbed out. The formation pattern shook a bit, but the formation was not broken. It only took 3 spiritual stones to trap the pill-forming stage. Although all the spirit stones exploded during the second strike, Tang Tiangong's move shocked everyone. When the formation was broken, the Danja sword was also placed on Tang Tiangong's neck. "Your skills are better than those trash," Naja Dankai said. Tang Tiangang looked up, not afraid at all, and said, "Since they are trash, let them go. If you want to kill them, kill me." Compared with the survival of his family, his lifespan is short, so he is naturally not afraid of death. "Kill you? You are a treasure." The Danja period smiled lightly and said, "I, Wan Jianren, know how to kill trash, but the appearance of a genius allows me to let go of a group of trash. As long as you let them go, I can do whatever they want. But I don't have much time left." Tang Tiangang was not stupid, he guessed why Wan Jianren came to the Tang family. They must have encountered some kind of big formation, but the tribesmen had no choice. What he said was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. First, it can save the lives of the people in the clan. The second is that you can increase your longevity and continue to study the formation. When he heard this, Zuyun couldn't help but be in awe. Give yourself up for the life of your entire family. But at the same time, he was even more confused. Why should 1 city be used to save his life now? What has this old monster who has lived for so many years experienced to treat monks like nothing? But what Tang Tiangang said next shocked him. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 268. Tang Tiangang seemed to have thought of an extremely ridiculous joke, and couldn't help but smile on his face, saying, "At the beginning of the Danja period," he said with a smile, "I, Wan Jianshan, am also the leader of the sect in Yazhu, and I only have a longevity Dan, you can get it?" But after he finished speaking, the smile on his face froze. "Because he discovered that I am just immortal." How could a mortal directly swallow a longevity pill to increase his longevity? Zuyun was shocked when he heard this. A mortal with a short lifespan? So how did he survive for so long? Seeing Zuyun's reaction, Tang Tiangang smiled even more and said to Zuyun, "Little friend Zhou, now, do you know why I dare not let those monks in?" Zuyun's brain exploded with a bang, and he said in shock, "City Lord Tang, are you still immortal now?" Tang Tiangang thought for a while and said, "I can't be considered immortal. I have made a breakthrough in the formation. According to the realm, I should have just reached the elixir formation stage. However, I don't have spiritual roots, so I don't have spiritual roots. However, I have a hunch that as long as I break through to the nascent soul stage, I will be able to wave my hands in formation, no problem." These words completely subverted Zhu Yun's understanding of cultivating immortals. All 3,000 avenues can lead to enlightenment. But without spiritual roots, there is no spiritual power. How to increase longevity? No wonder, just now Tang Tiangang looked crazy and said that he had made a breakthrough, but the result was that there was no spiritual power fluctuation, which almost made Zhu Yun think that this was an ancestor in the nascent soul stage. Zhu Yun only felt that his head was extremely confused. There were too many mortals in Yunzhou. Even with his 5 spiritual roots, he was almost not qualified to practice, let alone those mortals who had no spiritual roots. Could it be that anyone can practice cultivation? Little friend Zhou. At this time, Tang Tiangang suddenly shouted, making Zhu Yun suddenly come back to his senses. He looked solemn and said, "Be careful of being possessed." Ah! Zhu Yun exclaimed and saw Tang Tiangang take out 5 spiritual stones and said, "Tang is going to set up an exorcism heart formation. It seems that your Taoist heart is a little unstable." After finishing his words, Tang Tiangang threw the 5 spirit stones to the ground. Moment. The 5 spiritual stones are arranged in an orderly manner and located on the 5 sides of his body. At this time, he only dared to say that he had some understanding of the formation, and he could see that the distance between every 2 spiritual stones was the same. Extremely stable. Young friend Zhou, Tang prefers to call it the 5 elements exorcism array, the heart exorcism array. Since ancient times, the 5 elements have been mutually reinforcing and reinforcing each other. The secret is the word stability. And if your Taoist heart is unstable, Tang will naturally help you stabilize it. The inner demons are born from the Taoist heart, but after the Taoist heart is stabilized, the inner demons will naturally disappear. Wait for a moment, half an hour at most. While he was talking, the 5 spiritual stones actually emitted 5 elements of light, which turned out to be the spiritual power of each department. These spiritual powers, with Zhu Yun as the center, gathered towards him. This scene reminded Zhu Yun of his qi refining period, when his Danshan was a 5-color wheel. Now, he is the center of this 5-color carousel. Little friend Zhou, relax your mind and let the 5 elements of spiritual power pass through your body. Zhu Yun was completely at a loss. In addition to being shocked by Tang Tiangong's past, what he said at this time and the 5 elements exorcism array he had set up confused his mind. It wasn't until the 5 elements spiritual power penetrated his body that he suddenly came back to his senses. I saw that these 5 rays of light all merged into one after entering the body, forming a gray-white color that was exactly the same as the chaotic spiritual power, and rushed towards his Zifu. The so-called Taoist heart and inner demons are actually a very false statement and have no real existence. Some people say that Tao is the law of heaven and heart is human desire. The inner demon is a kind of doubt caused by the desire to be shaken and contrary to the Tao that one believes in. Zhu Yun knew that his inner demons were caused by the killing at that time. But at that time, wasn't he suppressed by himself? Could it be that the reappearance was caused by the beast tide this time? As the gray-white spiritual power entered Zi Mansion, Zhu Yun felt that his thinking became clearer and clearer. I don't know if it's the effect of the 5 elements exorcist array or if I figured it out myself. In short, my mind is very clear and I understand why Tang Tiangang trapped those people outside the city. Just to survive. What about me cultivating immortality? First of all, you have to survive in order to do what you want to do. Suddenly, Zhu Yun opened his eyes. In front of me is Tang Tiangang with a smile on his face. Little friend Zhou, it seems that my 5 elements exorcism array has a great effect on you. Thank you very much, Lord Tang. Zhu Yun handed over, how much benefit he gained, only he knew. What interested him even more was that the 5 elements exorcism array was completely connected with the principles of cultivation in the 5 elements Chaos Sutra. But this was Tang Tiangong's method. It was difficult for him to ask questions, so he sat down again and asked Tang Tiangang what happened next. Later, Wang Jianren took me to Wanjian Mountain. He said he wanted me to decipher the formation and its function of a large formation left over from ancient times. But because I don't have much life and I'm afraid I don't have enough time, I was not allowed to enter the big formation. Instead, I was asked to wait in a mysterious space in Wanjian Mountain and help him create a formation. Only ordinary monks can drive it, and it is a formation that can suppress monks and lower their realm. Hearing this, Zuyun couldn't help but say, "The confused sword formation." Tang Tiangang smiled slightly and said, "I didn't expect Zhou Xiao also knew." Zuyun nodded and did not explain why he knew it, but motioned for him to continue. He couldn't help but think of why Tang Zhuyang said that the sword formation was similar to his ancestral formation. Thinking of Tang Zhuyang, he began to speculate on the relationship between Tang Zhuyang and Tang Tiangang. Tang Zhuyang is also a member of the Tang family, but he has cultivated to the Jindan stage and has lived for so many years. When I created the sword formation, Wang Jianren also came back to find me and gave me a longevity pill that he said he got from the Peepa realm. After I took it, my lifespan increased by 500 years. After thinking that I had no problem, he took me into the forbidden area to study the formation. But do you know what happened after I went to the forbidden area? Zuyun shook his head. Tang Tiangong's eyes suddenly condensed, and he said, "After I entered the forbidden area, Wanjian Mountain sent people to destroy our Tang family." "What?" Zuyun shouted, "Why?" "No reason," Tang Tiangang said with a wry smile, "just because they are afraid that I will tell the Tang family the method to crack the sword array." Zuyun only understood at this time why Atang was stranded in Yunzhou, and even depended on Xiao He in the Wild Sea area, living such a miserable life. And, finally decided to hand over the solution of the array to him before daring to go back to Yezhu to take a look. Although at that time, it was also for the secret realm. But in the end, it was also because of his own lack of strength. "But how did you know?" For some reason, Zuyun felt very uncomfortable. He couldn't figure it out. If he was really afraid that Tang Tiangang would spread the method to crack the sword array, wouldn't it be better to just imprison him? Why did he have to involve the entire Tang family? Could it be that such a big force can do whatever it wants? Are you wondering why I survived? Tang Tiangong's words brought Zuyun back to his senses. Looking at Zuyun's eyes, Tang Tiangang sighed and said, "At that time, I didn't know that the Tang family had been destroyed. I was concentrating on cracking the ancient formation and analyzing every formation pattern. Until one day, my cousin sneaked into the forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain." Zuyun was a little unconvinced and said, "Lord Tang, how can it be so easy to sneak into the forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain?" Tang Tianxian showed contempt. "In the entire Yao realm, my Tang family's formation is second to none, no one dares to claim first place. The Qixingmen's formation is good, but they are not specialized like us, so they are naturally inferior." Hearing the Qixingmen, Zuyun was suddenly enlightened again, and saw Tang Tiangang continue to say, "The forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain is not on Wanjian Mountain, but under Wanjian Mountain. Zhou Xiao, do you know that Wanjian Mountain is actually an extremely huge sword?" Without waiting for Zuyun to respond, Tang Tiangang continued, "The forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain is not far from the tip of the sword. I heard about it when I arrived in Chuzhu. This sword is actually an unparalleled magic weapon. I didn't believe it, but after hearing it more, I believed it. However, this matter has nothing to do with the present, and Tang can't guarantee its truth or falsehood. Let's get back to the point. Let's talk about my cousin. He is also gifted in the art of formations, and he has never fallen behind in his practice. And do you know why he came to me?" Zuyun frowned and said, "The solution to the art of formation." Tang Tiangang said, "Yes. He only came for the solution to the art of formation. I can't say it's on me. He just said that the Tang family is gone, some died, some escaped, and he searched the entire ruins but couldn't find it. The explanation of the array, so I suspected that my father gave me the book, otherwise, how could I, a waste without spiritual roots, have such a high attainment in the array? Then, what happened later? There was no later. Tang Tiangang shook his head and said, I learned that the Tang family was destroyed, my father died, and the ancestral items were missing. I went crazy on the spot, and then attracted the guard of the Wanjian mountain, Elder Jianba. Tang Zhuyang was not weak, so he ran away. I heard that he went to Peeper Realm later. After that, I don't know. Unexpectedly, it was really Tang Zhuyang. Zuyun sighed in his heart. No wonder when he was in Yezhu, he called himself Zhuyang Genren and never said his surname. Moreover, he built Zhuyangmen under the Hongduan Mountains, far away from Wanjian Mountain in Yezhu. It turned out that he was afraid of Wanjian Mountain. Then, how did you get to Chuzhu? Tang Zhuyang was dead, so Zuyun naturally didn't mention it, so he continued to ask. Tang Tiangang smiled mysteriously and said, then we have to tell you what this ancient formation is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 269. Seeing this smile, Zuyun's heart suddenly jumped for no reason. Tang Tiangang did not keep him in suspense, and said with a smile, I know I can't run away, and I am forced to continue studying this formation. In order to avenge the extermination of the Wanjian Mountain in the future, I have to stabilize them. I finally calmed down and discovered the secret of this formation. What formation is it? Zuyun asked hurriedly. It's a teleportation formation. As soon as these words came out, Zuyun's breathing suddenly stagnated. Because he himself was also teleported to Chuzhu by a teleportation formation. Why, Zhou Xiao, have you heard of this formation? Tang Tiangang was very surprised. After arriving in Chuzhu, after ensuring his own safety, he asked about the teleportation formation. But there was no news at all. Moreover, he always thought that Zuyun came from Yezhu, and the teleportation formation of Wanjian Mountain was not even known to their elders. How could Zuyun, a foundation building period, know about it? Zuyun smiled bitterly and said, City Lord Tang, do you know where I came from? Tang Tiangang flashed a strange look and asked, isn't it Yezhu? Zuyun sighed, I know a little about formations. I found an ancient formation in Yunzhou. The formation patterns on it are complicated and I can't understand it at all. But I was tempted and tried to activate the formation, and I was teleported to Chuzhu. What? Tang Tiangong's expression, which had always been indifferent, suddenly changed. He stood up and grabbed Zuyun's shoulders, and said anxiously, you were teleported from Yunzhou? So, Yunzhou also has a teleportation formation. In this case, I have been looking for information for 100 years, and there is no teleportation formation in Chuzhu. Then there is only one place I haven't been to, and that is the location of the teleportation formation. Zuyun himself is not very interested in teleportation formations. The formations that he cannot master are too dangerous. Who knows where he will be teleported to? However, he still asked, the teleportation array in Chuzhu. Yes, Tang Tiangang said excitedly, I was also teleported directly from Yezhu to Chuzhu. I spent hundreds of years to run this Xian city. In addition to continuing to study the array, I also inquired about the news of the teleportation array. But I searched almost all over Chuzhu, and no one has seen it. Now, there is only one place that no one has been to. I think the teleportation array is there. Where is it? Zuyun's curiosity immediately aroused. He was not interested in the teleportation array, but in the unknown place. Demon Refining Tower. Tang Tiangang spit out these 3 words excitedly, and then looked at Zhu Yun with a sharp gaze. It is said that there is a big monster hidden in the Demon Refining Tower. Zhu Yun said seriously. I know. Tang Tiangang seemed to be unconcerned, saying, Friend Zhou, I have people I can use in Xian City, but no one I can trust. I want to study the teleportation array, but Yunzhou is too far away, but the Demon Refining Tower is much more convenient. Impossible. Zhu Yun shook his head and said, Lord Tang, I am only in the late stage of foundation building, how dare I enter the Demon Refining Tower? Friend Zhou, please. Tang Tiangang exerted force in his hands, although this little force could not hurt Zhu Yun at all. Lord Tang. I know nothing about the Demon Refining Tower. If I encounter a big monster, how can I survive? You have fled to Chuzhu to survive, so will I go to die? Faced with such a straightforward rejection, Tang Tiangang suddenly became a little lonely, and sat back in his chair dejectedly. He said, Friend Zhou, the teleportation array is related to my revenge. If I can comprehend the big array, I may be able to avenge my great revenge. Zhu Yun was shocked. Tang Tiangang was powerless at this time, and it was impossible for him to take the initiative to attack Wanjian Mountain. The formation outside his castle is as solid as a rock, which is the result of years of operation. Wanjian Mountain is someone else's territory, how could he let him set it up in advance? So, he wants to use the teleportation formation to lead the beast tide over? Suddenly, Zhu Yun understood why there were beast tides in Xian City at night. Maybe Tang Tiangang did it on purpose. If one day, the forbidden area under Wanjian Mountain suddenly surged with countless beast tides that could crush even the Dan stage. This trick is really invincible. Lord Tang, I can only say that I have the will but not the strength. Zhu Yun still refused. Tang Tiangang stared at Zhu Yun's expression, and after a while he said, Friend Zhou, I can teach you all my formations. You can copy the formation patterns in the Demon Refining Tower, or take me into the Demon Refining Tower, then, this Xian City can be given to you. Zhou Yun knew the scale of Xian City. It is so big that even though they knew there would be a beast tide at night, there were still many cultivators coming here. This is enough to show that Xian City is indeed a big city. And as he said before, there are people who can be used. Presumably, in addition to the guards outside the door, there are also some Jindan strong men, right? But he said that there is no one to trust, that is a relationship bound by interests. Zhu Yun smiled bitterly in his heart. It seems that Tang Tiangang really chose to believe me. But I can't die because of your belief. Lord Tang, Zhu Yun sighed and said, how about this, since you have waited for so many years, why not wait a little longer, wait for me to break through to the Jindan stage, and then break into the Demon Refining Tower, how about it? Really? Hearing this, Tang Tiangong's eyes suddenly became clear. Of course it's true. Zhu Yun nodded solemnly, not because he couldn't bear it, but because he knew very well that revenge was his obsession, and his sudden appearance seemed to give him a gleam of light. If he wiped out this light, there would be no hope at all. Zhu Yun believed that Tang Tiangang would immediately go crazy. Who knows what someone who dares to come up with such a crazy plan will do if he can't take revenge. Just like Sun Qinyang at that time, in order to avenge her brother, she actually kidnapped his father, Immortal. It is also caused by obsession. However, when her own strength surpassed her and prevented her from taking revenge, her hope was shattered and Sun Qinyang became even crazier. Zhu Yun did not dare to bet that Tang Tiangang would restrain his rationality, nor did he want to kill him at this time. First, Tang Tiangang has always been very polite to him. Secondly, he didn't know if Tang Tiangang had set up a killing array in this hall. He knew very well that Tang Tiangang was also a cold-blooded person. Look at those monks outside the city who died from the mouths of monsters. Ha ha ha. Little friend Joe, if that's the case, that's really great. Tang really can't repay your kindness to Tang. Don't worry, when you get revenge, I, Tang Tiangang, will promise you nothing. Fall. Sure enough, after hearing Zhu Yun's words, Tang Tiangang was overjoyed and thanked him repeatedly. Zhu Yun forced himself to smile and then said, "By the way, City Lord Tang, when will this beast tide end? I also have a friend who lives in Tang's Inn." Tang's Inn. Tang Tiangang raised his brows and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter, as long as there is a sign of the Tang family in Xian City, you can go directly to my city lord's mansion." Zhu Yun was stunned and heard Tang Tiangong's proud look on his face, saying, "Tang learned a little bit about the teleportation array back then, and he also set up the teleportation array. But after all, it was just a rudimentary, with many restrictions, and the layout was extremely troublesome. So it can only be used in Xian City. Since there is a teleportation array, there is no need to worry." Seeing Tang Tiangong's desire to show off his skills, Zhu Yun couldn't help but refuse. When he started teleporting from Yunzhou, he was still frightened by the pain caused by the space tearing his body apart. If you are not in a hurry, you can only wait until dawn, or these monsters will disperse naturally after they have eaten and drank enough. Zhu Yun didn't answer, but turned his head outside involuntarily. But, he couldn't see anything. By the way, Tang Tiangang suddenly remembered something and asked, "Zhou Xiao specially sent the solution to the formation. Are my descendants of the Tang family still well?" "It's okay, it's okay." Zhu Yun felt that although Atang and Lao He were low in strength, they acted reasonably. Although they entered the secret realm at that time, they must have gained something and then left. "That's good," Tang Tiangang sighed and said, "if you have the chance, bring them over and let me take a good look." "City Lord Tang, they are only in the qi refining stage." After hearing this, Tang Tiangang stopped talking and chatted with Zhu Yun about some things in Chuzhu, especially after the building of Xian City, and when he was looking for formations, he heard many interesting things. Among them, mentioning a person's name made Zhu Yun immediately interested again. Yang. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 270. City Lord Tang, is Yang famous in Chuzhu? Considering that even Li Mo, who has been practicing hard in the Liwo sect, knows about Yang, this Yang must be very unusual. After all, the fire spirit bead in his heart was also thrown into the sea by Yang. More than just famous. Tang Tiangang smiled and said, "Not only in Chuzhu, everyone in Yezhu also knows Yang's name." "Isn't it possible?" Zhu Yun shook his head and said, "To be honest, City Lord Tang, I am from Yunzhou, but I have also been in Yezhu, but I have never heard of this name. How can I be famous?" Yes, Yang was originally a powerful man thousands of years ago. Wang Jianshan must have kept this matter secret because he was afraid of losing his prestige, right? Is it related to Wanjian Mountain? Zhu Yun immediately became interested. Tang Tiangang said, "Before, I told you about the big sword in Wanjian Mountain, do you still remember it?" Zhu Yun nodded. Tang Tiangang grinned, "That sword is said to be the natal magic weapon of the founder of Wanjian Mountain." Magical weapon? Zhu Yun's brows jumped and he didn't believe it. Such a large magic weapon, how powerful is it when used? Yes, the magic weapon. But this magic weapon was smashed into the ground by Yang with a hammer, and it can never be taken out again. Why did Wang Jianshan stay in Yezhu? That's the reason why the ancestors' magic weapon, of course they have to keep an eye on the weapon. And the reason why you haven't heard of Yang must be because Wang Jianshan is afraid of losing face and has blocked this matter? Another hammer? This Yang is really a new trick, he can eat it all over the world. I heard from Li Mo that Chuzhu's territory was flourishing, and it was something he had done in one go. From this point of view, Ye Yong's hammer may still be a supreme treasure. When he thought of this, Zuyun couldn't help but have an idea. Could it be that it is a fairy treasure like my Diwu glazed mirror? Is the forbidden area related to this sword? Zuyun remembered that Tang Tiangang had just said that the forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain was not far from where the tip of the sword entered the ground. I don't know. Anyway, the information I can know is that Senior Ye Yong smashed the big sword in with a hammer and then went to the Peeper realm. I have verified this matter through information obtained from many sources. Is Senior Ye Yong still in the Peeper realm? In Zuyun's heart, the idea of meeting Ye Yong vaguely rose. After thousands of years, I don't know if Ye Yong has attained the great Dao and ascended to immortality. How can the Peeper realm retain Senior Ye Yong? Tang Tiangang smiled at first, and then sighed. Although Ye Yong only has one hammer, his understanding of cultivating immortals has greatly benefited the people of Chuzhu. How do you say this? Because Ye Yong has no spiritual roots. What? Zuyun's eyes widened in disbelief. How could he develop such terrifying strength without spiritual roots? But he suddenly stared at Tang Tiangang again and said in shock, "So City Lord Tang, you used the formation to prove the Tao and broke through to the current level of pill formation, is it because of his influence?" Tang Tiangang was non-committal and said, "Young friend Zhou, you have to know that when I fled from Wanjian Mountain to Chuzhu, I was just immortal." Zuyun was stunned and said, "So you heard about Senior Ye Yong in Chuzhu, and then practiced with the formation to extend your life?" "That's right. I used the formation method to break through the Qi refining stage and the foundation building stage successively. Although I can't practice spiritual power, my lifespan has indeed increased. Even because of my previous insights on the solution to the formation Dao, I once again broke through to the end. In the Dan stage, I can feel that I can live for several hundred more years. That's why, little friend Zhou, I am willing to wait for you to break through the Dan stage and help me find the teleportation array in the Demon Refining Tower." "I see." Zuyun originally thought it was strange why he asked him to wait until he reached the elixir forming stage before helping him explore the Demon Tower, but Tang Tiangang immediately agreed. Even he can still afford to wait. Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief, and was now sure that Tang Tiangang was really not hostile to him. "So, what did Senior Ye Yong leave behind?" "He left 16 words." At this point, Tang Tiangang looked up at Zuyun and said, "Both plants, trees, monsters, and beasts can become immortals. I don't have spiritual roots, why can't I?" Zuyun murmured, "What domineering words." "That's right, cultivating immortals is contrary to nature. And Ye Yong can cultivate supreme magical powers without spiritual roots, so why can't I, Tang Tiangang?" "Senior Ye means that non-human beings do not have spiritual roots, but they can also become immortals. And human beings, who are the spirits of all things, should be able to do it. In the end, these 4 words, why not, I'm even asking God." Zuyun couldn't help but sigh. Even Tian dared to ask, no wonder everything he did was done with one blow. Just so domineering. Presumably his Taoist heart is to prove the Tao with the hammer? Tang Tiangang deeply believed that he was the beneficiary of these 16 words, nodded and smiled. "Actually, I haven't found much information about Yeazhu in recent years, but I also know that Wanjianshan has also been slightly affected." "You mean, they're sword cultivators?" Zuyun's eyes suddenly lit up, and he seemed to have found the reason why the sword cultivator of Wanjian Mountain was better than the monks of the same realm. Perhaps, their ancestor came to this realization when Ye Yong hammered his natal magical weapon? He still remembered what Jian Shiba said when he accepted Chen Hua as his disciple. Sword cultivation is second to the spiritual root, and the understanding above the sword is the most important. Then there's the matter of whether one's temperament is strong enough to withstand the hardships of cultivating immortality. Now, he understood everything. It seems that if he wants to know more about Ye Yong, he must go to Peeper Realm. Zuyun felt a surge of blood in his heart. Only if his strength is unmatched, he will not hide it so much and use a pseudonym when he goes out. He is afraid that others will ask him to swear. Why, Zhou Xiao, did you also have some insights from this? Tang Tiangong's words interrupted Zhu Yun's thoughts. Indeed, the insights are quite deep. In fact, Chuzhu's 10,000 demons Ju also originated from this. 10,000 demons Ju. Zhu Yun's eyelids jumped, as if he felt that he had touched some secrets again. These things could not be learned from Li Mo. Nowadays, most of the cultivators in Chuzhu worship Yayong. According to my inquiries, the leader of the demon control sect was one of his fanatical admirers. No one knows how Yayong cultivated without spiritual roots. However, they do know that Yayong was born in the 10,000 mountains where monsters are rampant. 10,000 mountains. There are 10,000 monsters in one mountain. There are countless monsters in the 10,000 mountains. Many people speculate that Yayong was able to walk from the mountains to Chuzhu because of his monster power. Therefore, the leader of the demon control sect researched the 10,000 monsters art. But who would have thought that if the 10,000 monsters art was not successful, he would become a monster? It all depends on a thought. Speaking of this, Tang Tiangang couldn't help but sigh. Zhu Yun was puzzled, and Tang Tiangong's explanation followed. If I, Tang Tiangang, had not swallowed the elixir given by Wanji Unshan, which increased my lifespan by 500 years, and I was able to comprehend the Dao of formation with my mortal body, how could I understand the truth? 3,000 great ways can all be achieved. But how difficult is it without spiritual roots? Without cultivation, ordinary people's lifespan is only 100 years. And it took me 200 years to comprehend the Dao of formation and reach the Qi refining stage. So that's it? Zhu Yun immediately understood that Wanji Unshan still required spiritual roots to accept disciples in the Lingjian sect, and also needed to practice the Qi refining technique. At the same time, he also knew that there were countless warriors in the mortal world, but he had never heard of a cultivator who entered the Dao through martial arts. It is true that the spiritual power of Yunzhou is poor, but the Yunzhou chronicles introduced the history within 10,000 years. When the spiritual power was rich, there was no precedent for warriors to enter the Dao, but other people who entered the Dao were occasionally mentioned. However, it was not mentioned whether the people who entered the Dao had spiritual roots. This Yayong is indeed a man of extraordinary talent. By the way, City Lord Tang, Zhu Yun said, if I remember correctly, the demon refining tower is in the demon control sect, right? Yes, Tang Tiangang said with a smile, the demon refining tower has existed for many years and is a forbidden area of the demon control section. I have never thought about exploring that place, but after you mentioned the Yunzhou teleportation array, I thought about looking for it. So, my friend Zhou, I'll ask you to take over this matter and practice more. After saying that, he bowed very politely, which made Zhu Yun feel very uncomfortable. But he had no choice. By the way, my friend Zhou, I heard you say that you also know a little about the formation. Although I am in the Jindan stage, I have no spiritual power, and I can only use this formation. Why don't you help me see how my killing formation works? Zhu Yun was stunned, and then saw Tang Tiangang gently press his position. Instantly, countless array patterns flashed and enveloped the two of them. The murderous aura in the sky almost followed the array patterns and immediately locked onto Zhu Yun. This is. Although Zhu Yun knew that Tang Tiangang had no intention of killing, he was horrified and was glad that he had not taken action before. Otherwise, he would have died in this array. At this time, Tang Tiangang showed a proud look and said, Friend Zhou, this array was created by Tang, named the 10 killing array. As soon as the words fell, Zhu Yun felt the murderous aura surge, as if to annihilate him into powder.